we have Gorkan Bey, who is the, let's just get this right, the Managing Director of Quattro International Inc. So he'll be taking the panelists through their questions and answers. And the subject that they're going to discuss today is, where does gas and LNG sit in the global framework as we go forward, and we examine how that fits into carbon neutral and climate change. So I'm going to leave the stage to Gorkan and his two panelists, and have a nice day, and thank you for all your contributions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris, for this short introduction, and I would like to welcome everyone joining us, listening and seeing us. I will start by briefly introduce our panelists today. We have Aura Sabadus and Volkan Yiğit. Aura Sabadus is a senior journalist specializing in Eastern European and Turkish gas markets for ICIS, which is a global energy and petrochemicals news and data provider based in London. And Volkan Yiğit is a partner of A+ Energy with civil engineering and project management background, mainly focused on market research and analysis, and also medium and long-term electricity price forecasting. And I will be moderating this session. So what we are going to discuss today in our session is the future of LNG and gas markets in terms of long-term contracts and expiration dates nearing with Turkish authorities, and also the effect of COVID-19 back in 2020 and in 2021, and also the regional gas dynamics as per the new gas power plants in Turkey, and also new discoveries. So in that sense, I would like to start with Aura. And Aura, could you provide us some information on supply and demand dynamics back in 2020 and in 2021, looking in the future? What will be different from 2020 in the upcoming year? Of course, I would like you to also shed light on the long-term contracts with respect to capacity indexation or take or pay obligations. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Gökhan Bey, and thank you to the organizers for inviting me to speak today. And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a real pleasure to join this event, which I believe is running in its 11th year. As you said, Gökhan Bey, we are supposed to discuss developments in gas markets, and what better opportunity to do so than right at the time when we've seen a big swing from record low levels last summer and record high prices right now in January. So within the space of 6 months, we've seen a huge swing of about $30. So from prices below $2 last summer, $2 per MMBTU, to over $30 in the first half of January. So tremendous changes, tremendous volatility over the last couple of months. So is it possible that the drivers we witnessed will come back last year, will come back this year? So last year we've seen incredibly low prices, record low prices. So the question is, are we going to see the same fundamental drivers this year? I would say probably not. The global supply overhang of 2020 may have well cleared, being replaced by tightened market, which we see right now. And demand, which was destroyed by the coronavirus pandemic and the restrictions that were imposed in the wake of this pandemic, may in fact increase. So demand, we might see an increase in demand as we see a recovery in the economy. So let's look at the facts and figures, which my company have been crunching over the last couple of months. Well, ICIS predict global LNG production at around 388 million tons this year, and that would be almost 7% up on 2020. This is a high year-on-year increase than the previous year, when output grew by only about 2% relative to 2019. Nevertheless, most of this increase will come just from 2 or 3 countries, US in particular, where production is set to increase to about 70 million tons this year. That would compare to about 50 million tons in 2019. So within the space of 2 years, we see a 20 million ton increase in US production. The other interesting country that could see production increase is Egypt, which obviously is right on Turkey's doorstep, so to speak. Of course, we can't compare Egyptian production to US production, but still the increase is from 1.5 million tons last year in Egypt to about 5 million tons per year this year. On the other hand, the other major producers, LNG producers, Australia, Qatar, Russia, Nigeria, will see output pretty much flat. So we're not going to see any growth from this part of the world, so from these producers. On the demand side, as I said, we expect global economic recovery, and that could in turn boost consumption. But there are also some regional factors to watch, and one of these factors would be the gas switch, particularly in Asia. US-China political relations, maybe we see a warming up of relations, particularly in the wake of the Biden administration. So definitely no more tariff wars as we saw under the Trump administration. Oil prices and carbon prices probably pairing some premium, although with carbon prices it's debatable because we've seen carbon prices of around 34 euros, which was again a record. And another regional factor to watch in Europe is nuclear availability. So if some of the nuclear power plants in France go offline, that could trigger a whole chain of events and would lead to an increase in demand for gas. Now, in terms of demand and actual figures, we anticipate that China would overtake Japan as a major producer, as a major off-taker of LNG. And in December last year, in fact, we saw Chinese LNG demand soaring to the highest level ever. So that was about 8.3 million tons. Just as US production, interestingly enough, increased to a record monthly level of about 6.3 million tons. In Europe and Turkey, LNG imports dropped year on year. In the final quarter of 2020, largely as many companies were favoring pipeline gas over LNG. Obviously, this was all dictated by price. But there have also been fewer imports into Europe. In Q1 21, there were lots of cargoes, as we've seen. So this month, lots of cargoes have been diverted to Asia. I've done checked some numbers, and it seems that Turkey secured 20 cargoes for delivery between December and March. Now, this is pretty much in line with what Turkey had been doing before in previous years. We don't know whether BOTAŞ, so the state company, has been buying or has secured any more spot cargoes in the meantime, but the 20 cargoes that we hear are pretty much confirmed. But on the other hand, in 2019, Turkey imported 133 LNG cargoes on a contractual and spot basis. That figure rose to 155 in 2020, with 33 cargoes secured just in January 2020. Now, for this month, Turkey imported, according to our records, up until the 24th of January, 13 cargoes, and these came from Algeria, Nigeria, and the US. We've seen some more cargoes coming in. So since I did this presentation, so since I put all these figures together, there have been an uptick, and there seem to be more cargoes coming in February, in the first week of February. Roughly between 6 and 9, we expect. Now, going forward, it is much less clear what strategy BOTAŞ the private importers will take, and I think Volkan Bey will be discussing this issue because we know that about 16 BCM of pipeline and LNG contracts are up for renewal. But we know for sure that Russian oil index prices are expected to increase from roughly $170 per thousand cubic meters in the first quarter of this year to about 235 towards the end of this year. So again, you know, it will be a question of optimizing or of shopping for the most attractive price, whether it's going to be LNG or pipeline gas. So do we expect prices to be higher in 2020? Yes, it's possible. But the question is, will they be much higher than oil index contracts? And I guess there are a couple of things that we need to watch as we go forward. In conclusion, I would say the evolution of global LNG prices this year, contract renewals in Turkey, and thirdly, what will happen to potash? And I would like, again, maybe Volkan Bey could answer this question. We hear that the FSRU Challenger currently at Dirtyol has been put up for chartering. I know that the charter ends at the end of March, but we've seen it in the Braemar report. We've seen it that it's now up for rechartering from the 1st of April. So if potash recharters it, that's an indication that it may be interested in buying more LNG. If not, probably pipeline gas will be the option for this year. This is my contribution, but happy to answer any questions if there are any from you or from the audience.
Thank you, Aura, for this really insightful information that you provided for us. And with that, I would like to turn to Volkan Bey. Volkan, the same question comes to you. Please give us your assessment on the supply and demand dynamics compared with last year and this year, what we should be expecting. And you can also examine this in terms of Turkey's long-term contracts again. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Gökhan Bey. Thank you, Aura, for the information as well. Well, the way we look at it, we knew this was 2021. The change in 2021 has been long coming, and Turkey will need to make kind of a transition, make a decision, and hold the negotiations for the renewal of the long-term contracts with Russia. Because as Aura pointed out, there is now roughly 16 billion cubic meters of deals of long-term contracts that are up for renewal. But of course, 6.6 of this was with Azerbaijan, and that has actually in practice been replaced by TANAP, where we're getting 6 BCM per year. So the question, the bigger question will be what Turkey's private importers and also potash, led by potash, will do in the negotiations with Russia to renew the 8 BCM per year contract. And Turkey has been gearing up for this, and I find the strategy that the government bodies worked on very successful until now. Because what Turkey has done, it's improved its technical infrastructure greatly by adding LNG, by increasing the capacity of the LNG terminals, by commissioning the FSRUs, and by increasing significantly the share of LNG, spot LNG, and not only long-term contracts, but spot LNG into the gas supply mix. So Turkey has been successful in this sense, in technically managing this infrastructure. And also we were lucky in terms of gas prices, let's say, in 2020, because of these technical developments, Turkey was able to increase the LNG share in its supply mix greatly to some 50% in the second quarter of the year, given the very low LNG prices on that quarter. So, and then this was converted into the business as usual scenario, where spot LNG percentage share dropped to 20% in quarter 3 and 4. So we know that the negotiations have been going for a long time now, and we always said within the year 2020, Turkey, with the advantage of LNG prices and with the advantage of these technical advancements, had an upper hand in the negotiations against Russia, looking at not only from the supply side, but also on demand side, because Turkey's contracts totaled some 60 BCM in total, and our consumption, the total demand, is hovering around 50 BCM per year. So we have some flexibility in the supply mix. But nearing the end of the year, nearing the end of 2020, with the spike in LNG prices, I am sure our government bodies are finding it a bit more difficult to negotiate with a strong, let's say, counterparty. So the negotiations has been hard, and I think they will keep being hard. But what Turkey still plans to do, looking from the perspective that Aura set out, rechartering the FSRU in Hatay Dörtyol, is that it's going to continue buying more LNG. And if you look closely to the numbers, the share of Russian gas in total, it has been dropping year by year, and the share of course, Azerbaijan contract with TANAP introduction has increased. It will stabilize with the expiration of the former contract, but also one thing that is affecting globally, and Gökhan Bey, I think you'll also comment on those, with the relationship and the trade deals in LNG and elsewhere with the US. So the share of US LNG in the Turkish gas supply in 2020 has increased to almost 8%. This is significant. Where in the other side, Russia's share has dropped to 27%, down from 47 in 2018. Of course, we don't only look at it from the supply side, also on demand side, like I discussed, and coming from an originally electricity market perspective in A+, we also look very closely into how much of a demand can CCGTs bring into the market. Because as many of the audience knows, 2019 has been a wet year in terms of hydrology, where Turkey had a record level of hydro generation, so it needed less natural gas, and the demand that year fell down to 45 BCM, a 10% drop. And in 2020, obviously, during the pandemic restrictions, the necessity of running CCGTs were very low, and they had to shut down for majority of the time in Q2, and demand did not did reach the same level in 2018 at some 50 BCM. So again, going forward, 2021, the way we look at the hydrology, electricity demand going forward, we also see 51 to 52 BCM of demand for Turkey for the year. EMRA just recently announced they're also projecting some 50.8 BCM or so. So it is very important how the electricity demand will shape up and how much contribution will CCGTs will add to this. We talked about the technical efforts on the terminal and on the terminals, and one thing to add also is that going forward, Turkey is doing one more strategic investments on increasing its storage facilities, which will further increase the flexibility in the system, in the natural gas infrastructure, and will enhance our chances of buying more LNG when prices are low. Of course, these comments are always made bearing in mind if a long-term pipeline contract would be cheaper than the LNG. There's no right. I mean, it's $1 million question that we ask ourselves every day. But to find the right balance between the two of them, and to take the advantage in periods where prices move to one side. So Turkey is doing good on that side, I can say. And last thing, maybe, and I'll leave the floor to you, Gökhan Bey, is that the discovery in Sakarya oil field is also very important. So it's a natural gas field is also equally important, and with the global LNG prices increasing, international partnerships could be also evaluated on that front to explore, to further explore and extract this natural gas and put it in use. The current plan, as we know, is to get it commissioned to the first gas to be pumped in 2023. But let's see how things unfold and how the investment structure there is built, and the effects we'll keep monitoring very closely.
Thank you, Volkan Bey, for your excellent assessment. And we are like halfway through our panel. And at this point, I would like to zoom out a little bit from Turkey and look at the region, Aura. We have seen quite a few developments in 2020 in terms of gas pipelines, and it's still an ongoing issue. We had Turkish Stream coming online, and also Turkish Stream, the second stage, coming online and providing natural gas to southeastern Europe. And also we have this Nord Stream issue still under sanctions, and there is a struggle going on in between Russia, a little bit Germany, and the United States in terms of completing the pipeline and not completing the pipeline, by the way. The work has been stopped as far as I know. The insurance companies are a little bit getting a cold feet to work with the Nord Stream issue. And also TANAP came online last year. How do you see the regional dynamics will play out in 2021?
Well, I mean, these are big pipelines that we were somehow aware of. We knew that Turk Stream was going to be completed. We knew that the Southern Gas Corridor was going to be completed. For me, and this is not necessarily just about these pipelines, but for me, what really changes the market is not so much a new project or a new molecule of gas, but it's actually the contractual terms that underpin imports. So go back to your question. Yes, of course, TANAP brings more gas to Turkey, and we've seen that over the last couple of years there was an overlap between the first Shah Deniz contract and the second Shah Deniz contract, so a lot of Azeri gas. We don't know what's going to happen to the first contract, but if there is more, if they renew it, then of course there will be more Azeri gas coming in, which is great. The same can be said about the Balkan region and Italy. Of course, we know that as far as Italy is concerned, some of these contracts have a hub indexation. Greece, I think the Greek contract also has an element of hub indexation. It's not so clear about Bulgaria, because Bulgaria will be importing 1 BCM via the Southern Gas Corridor. So we don't, I don't know what the formula is on that contract. But certainly the contracts that are, for Italy and for Greece bring an element of change. So there's hub indexation. For Turkey, as you know, there is no hub indexation. As far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, Volkan Bey, but that the indexation is to the Russian contract, as far as I know, on the Azeri contracts. So I would have liked to see a little bit more creativity in terms of contractual terms on this particular import. With Turk Stream, it's the same, it's the same oil index contract, take or pay. So I would be very, very curious to see what happens during the negotiations this year between BOTAŞ and Gazprom. And I would be very keen to see how much flexibility Turkey can secure, because I think, as we discussed, going forward, it's not a question of oil index contracts or LNG being better. The question is here to be able to have enough flexibility to switch between one and the other at very short term. So, going forward, the key to success, to my mind, would be the ability to get this. So I would hope to see more flexibility in contractual terms. So regionally speaking, I would say that, yes, there is more gas coming from the Southern Gas Corridor. Turkstream pretty much diverts volumes from one place to the other. So we know that the gas that comes to Turkey right now was the gas that came through the Trans-Balkan pipeline, so the Western line. So I wouldn't say that Turkstream makes a tremendous contribution to the region. Personally, that's my opinion. Southern Gas Corridor does to a certain extent, but what would really make a contribution would be more flexibility at contractual level.
Well, thank you. To comment on your last point, maybe in terms of gas supply, Turkstream is not making a huge difference, but in political means, I mean, skipping Ukraine to provide this gas supply is quite important in the, global stage.
Well, absolutely. I mean, we've already seen a huge drop, and the Trans-Balkan pipeline was almost empty last year. So it's absolutely clear from a political point of view that part of the market was eliminated. And yes, maybe it ticked Russia's box, but from a market point of view, and this is precisely what I was addressing, it doesn't make a particular difference.
Yes, and my next question is to you, Volkan Bey. Aura talked about the new Gazprom contracts. Do you have a timeline on these contracts, and when we will be able to see the end of negotiations, and how Turkish authorities are handling these negotiations? Do you have some insights on this?
Well, actually, like I said, this has been long coming, and ideally, I would expect to have some kind of an agreement on the table that parties are okay, if not very happy about it, both parties. But given the volatility in the prices in 2020, that I believe made things very hard. No inside information, because this is one of the very toughest areas that you can go inside, actually, unless you are a member of the negotiating party. But as a consultant, I have to, and I would like to rely more on the numbers. And given the drop from 47% share of Russia in Turkey's gas mix to 27%, and given the hit Gazprom took from the COVID-19 pandemic restrictions, etc., I would expect a more lenient approach. And also touching on the Turkstream, the advantages it brought Russia on the political side, and also the relationships with Russia is not only on gas, is not only on military, also on nuclear. So we were, let's say, kind of putting all eggs in one basket. We tried to start the diversification from gas, which is a good thing, and I believe this should lead to an advantage on Turkey's side. But when and how is, again, the $1 million question. We, for example, as A+, as we do price forecasting for both natural gas and electricity, what we do in our analysis, we rely on a hybrid model, and we say contract renewals are going to be X percentage indexed to a hub, which Turkey was willing to take before this recent spike. So with the settling of the LNG prices, I think that would be a best fit for the renewal of Russian contracts, to have a balanced, a hybrid model that incorporates both oil products, like today, and today it's 100% oil products. And if you look at the world stage and European countries, in the world, 20% of total long-term gas contracts are with oil price indexation, 80% is hub indexed, and in Europe, in the world, it's 40 to 60. 40% is oil price indexed and 60 is hub. And in Europe, it's 20% is oil indexed. And we are the leading country, which is left with an 100% oil price indexed contracts. And we might be taking the hit. We might be the only country taking the hit in case of a price spike in oil. So why not balance it for both countries? Because Gazprom has done this to several other European countries. It has either taken a cut on the prices in these negotiations, or switch to a more hybrid or totally hub index pricing. So to find the right balance is the target of, should be and is the target of our potash directors, managers, so to speak.
Well, thank you. Interesting. Yeah, it will be interesting to see how these things will come to an end. And we mentioned and talked about the north of the region a lot, but we have another supply of gas in the south, which is East Med. Do you have any updates, Aura, on what's going on in the East Med region with respect to, for example, Leviathan or Tamar fields, and the feasibility of an East Med pipeline maybe leading up to Europe? Do you have any updates on this?
Well, it's hard to say that it's a very encouraging picture. I would, as I would put it. Of course, much of it. So it doesn't matter how much the Eastern Mediterranean countries would like to send the gas over to Europe. And much will also depend on, first of all, the construction of the pipeline, the politics of the region, which you sitting in Turkey, of course, know how extremely complex it is, and also in terms of local demand. So right now, I'm not hearing any particular changes. I know that, yes, there is an interest to bring the gas into Greece. I believe the Greeks are interested in importing the gas from Israel and possibly to for onward shipments, not just into Greece, but also throughout the Balkans. With the purchase of the Noble assets by Chevron, it's possible that we may see a bigger American involvement in this region and support for the construction of this pipeline. But again, I believe that you would be best to comment on the Turkish aspect of the negotiations, and to say, well, whether there is any hope in the future that, first of all, negotiations would come to some kind of optimistic outcome, or whether indeed Turkey might be going forward interested in importing some of this gas.
Well,
it's a tricky issue.
Thank you. It's
very tricky.
That's why the tricky question was for you. Now,
thank you.
in our last 10 minutes something, I would like our panel to discuss a little bit the new U.S. energy policy and the way forward in the natural gas and LNG industry. I would give brief information on what's going on, then I will take your comments, both of you. As you know, contrary to Trump administration, Biden administration has argued in favor of developing the clean energy industry in the United States and worldwide to address the climate change, the urgent problem. And as we know, of course, Biden's plan for climate change and environmental justice aims to reach 100% carbon-free power generation by 2035 and a net zero emission by 2050 in the United States and, if possible, in the world. And to reach this goal, Biden administration has pledged to eliminate federal fossil fuel subsidies in the United States and to restore taxes on corporations that were excessively cut by Trump administration. And the second pillar of the Biden administration's program consists of a massive investment plan to support the development of a low-carbon industry and climate research and innovation, which I believe creates a significant opportunity for private sector actors. To achieve this, as we know of, Biden administration wants to redirect financing provided by some financial institutions, such as the United States International Development Finance Corporation, DFC, and the Export-Import Bank, Exim Bank, from fossil fuels to clean energy technologies. Eventually, this would allow private actors in developing countries such as Turkey to overcome investment barriers and would eventually unlock the capital investment required to achieve a global energy transition. In a nutshell, the world is pivoting to a low carbon industry in the upcoming years. How do you think that this is going to affect the regional and actors in Turkey? I would like to start with Volkan Bey, and I will give the last word to Aura.
Thank you, Gökhan Bey. Turkey obviously has done many good things on the transition to a renewable phase since 2014, 2015. And the YEKDEM support scheme has been very successful in increasing the renewable capacity of the country. And yesterday, the share of wind alone in the total electricity demand in Turkey was roughly 28%, was a record level. In a windy day, so to speak, it's enough to bring down prices in the day-ahead market. And also with the combination of solar, the vast amount of hydropower generation we have, luckily, we are in a good position in terms of carbon intensity in electricity generation. We have somehow contradicting strategic plan to build further local coal, further lignite power plants. As you know, in the strategic plan between 2019 to 2023, the Ministry of Energy is planning to add some 4 to 5 gigawatts of local coal lignite capacity, which we believe, I personally and us as a company, as a consultant, will be very hard to get, because one of the first tenders for such developments, although it has been concluded more than 2 years ago, has not been successful so far to kick off the construction. And the second one has been cancelled. The tender has been revisited some 7 times and has been cancelled after that. So Turkish government wants to and strategically plans to build these carbon intensive plants, but the atmosphere in the investment side, many European and international banks stopped funding such plans. So it's kind of self-driving itself into more renewable capacity additions. And in 2020, with the YEKDEM deadline, of course, pushing power plants to commission as soon as possible to catch the deadline, which was, of course, then extended. But nevertheless, 99% of the total capacity commissioned in 2021 was renewables, which is a huge thing. And Turkey is one of the leaders in the world in this sense. The only question is that will new pipeline contracts, mostly on wind, be successful? Because, as you know, there was a reverse auction methodology for some of them. So they're not only merchant, but they're also willing to pay back a certain fee to the TSO to build a wind power plant. Given the financing environment and the lower levels of electricity price, some projects might revisit their partners, their funders. But again, with the expectation on the new support scheme announcement due next month, as we hear from the ministry, I think our road to transition to further penetration of renewables will continue, and the share of renewables will, of course, pick up, and the share as the demand in electricity side grows, maybe the total output of the local coals will stay as they are, but their shares will drop. One last thing is that Turkey at the moment does not have a carbon tax or carbon pricing mechanism, which is becoming an issue given the discussions around the European Union Green Deal, the carbon tax at the border. So there's the emission trade system, which a PH will commission, will start operating in the second half of this year, which is very critical to our industrial investors to avoid such carbon tax. But a carbon tax, it will be on the pipeline. You might not necessarily call it a tax, but a carbon price will be there in the plans that we make for the future. That's how we look at things. And that will help further the clean energy transition into a more carbon neutral environment.
Yes, very, very important points. And how do you assess things are going to unfold with respect to transition to clean energy, Aura?
Well, obviously, as Volkan Bey just said, Turkey has been building quite a lot of lignite-fired capacity, and there is still some more in the pipeline. And I don't think that that will just shut down, or the Turkish government will be pulling the plug on it, because you also have a social aspect to the whole lignite mining, lignite generation, and so forth. And it was part of the Turkish drive for energy independence, right? But going forward, I think Turkey would be much better off to consider starting a lot of hydrogen generation. And only a couple of weeks ago, I wrote a story about a small plant. So the distribution companies are already looking into this, I believe also working with Potash, and looking at pipeline conversion, so transmission and distribution pipeline conversion. And there is a small facility close to Ankara that is already involved in this. And when I wrote this story, it was one of the best read stories we've ever had at ICIS, because everybody is watching Turkey, knowing Turkey's enormous renewable potential. And I would say that Turkey could work very nicely with the European Union. I know, for example, Holland, for example, is looking to work with Morocco to generate hydrogen in Morocco and then import it to Holland, to the Netherlands. So I'm asking, why Morocco when you can easily start producing either electrolyzed hydrogen, so hydrogen based on renewable generation, or steam methane reformed hydrogen from gas, because Turkey will have gas from the Black Sea. So I'm surprised that I don't see more initiative in terms of hydrogen production. It's true that until now the price of hydrogen was significantly higher, still is significantly higher than natural gas. But going forward, Turkey has enormous potential: wind, solar, hydro generation, nuclear generation in the future. Why not use this capacity and start investing a lot and start looking for opportunities with the European Union and other countries going forward? So for me, it would be an area that could be nicely tapped over the next couple of years.
Yes, thank you for the insights, Aura. And I think there's going to be a European Union summit with Turkey in March this year. And if everything goes well on the political side, then we can talk about this kind of investment maybe.
Well, absolutely. It's if you look at Europe, it's already talking about hydrogen as though, this is the thing for the future. And it's true, as I said, it's true that it's so expensive, but many countries are already talking about integrating the transmission system, about producing a lot of hydrogen, mainly green hydrogen, so electrolyzed hydrogen. But certainly this is the fuel of the future, and Turkey needs to be right there, because Turkey has all this tremendous potential. It has all these renewables that could be tapped.
Well, thank you, both of you, actually, for participating in this panel and providing the audience with wonderful insights. Most probably they have your contact information already, and they will come back to you if they have further questions. And I guess we are drawing near to our time. And if you don't have anything to add, I would like to close this session and give the floor to the organizer.